20 years. Even if you've never seen a single episode, you definitely have seen multiple clips in your lifetime. The show was marketed as a platform for people to share their problems and then in return given unfiltered advice and guidance.
Oh, we know Dr. Phil's on cap.
And it was pretty entertaining. But we never really thought about the actual effects that the show had on people and if it was really for the better. Dr. Phil and the show has been the subject of many experts criticizing it for its methods. Many people after the show had their lives improved, but others had their lives ruined. And during its run, Dr. Phil was a subject of many concerning lawsuits that honestly were not really talked about that much. But when it was all said and done,
I ain't never heard of none.
Estimated net worth of over $400 million.
$400 million.
The way he claimed, or did he just get away with exploiting mental illness? Let's cut the bullshit and get right into it.
He got away with exploiting mental illness.
A real doctor? Technically no. Now when you hear doctor, you will think of a medical doctor. You think of a person in a white coat with a stethoscope that tells you not to drink like 10 energy drinks a day or whatever other crap they try to tell you. But to be a doctor, you simply need to acquire a doctorate, which can be in many different fields. Dr. Phil specifically got his PhD in clinical psychology from the University of North Texas in 1979. So he may not be the guy you ask for help when someone is having a heart attack, but he is still technically a doctor on paper. Or at least he was until 2006, because that was when he stopped renewing his license. Even with this, he was still only technically a doctor in the state of Texas, not in California, where his show was filmed. So how was he able to call himself a doctor this entire time? Well, the California Board of Psychology deemed that this was okay because the show was more about entertainment rather than actually trying to diagnose patients with true psychology, which tells you all you need to know. Now, when he did get his doctorate, he did work at his dad's private psychology practice. But when he was there, he realized that he did not like being a therapist. I didn't have the patience for it. People would want to sit there and talk to you for 6 months, and a lot of times I could figure in the first hour that they just wanted to rent a friend. I'd be sitting there and saying, you know, here's your problem. You're a jerk. So soon after, him and his dad partnered with Thelma Box, who was hosting a business and self-help seminars. This helped Dr. Phil be a lot more experienced as a businessman and with engaging with audience members. And in 1991, he sold his share of the company for $325,000. His next move was forming the business Courtroom Sciences Incorporated, or CSI for short. This company was a consulting firm where they would do dry runs of a court hearing. They would analyze the body language of the members involved in the court hearing, and they would give advice to the clients based on their evaluations. This would help give lawyers and the clients the upper hand when the actual trial occurred. One of these clients was an up-and-coming TV host by the name of Oprah Winfrey. Ever heard of her? In 1998, Oprah was sued for an episode where she talked about cattle being fed animal protein. In the episode, she made a comment about how feeding cattle dead livestock could lead to mad cow disease. Cows are herbivores. They shouldn't be eating other cows. It has just stopped me cold from eating another burger. Now, Oprah was huge at this time, so she had a very big influence. People would just kind of like take her information at face value. Fact or no fact, they believed what she said. So the day after this episode dropped, it had a very big effect on the beef market. Cattle future dropped by 10% and beef prices went from 62 cents to 55 cents per pound. It was a big deal, but there wasn't really any evidence for what she said. So a lot of people from the beef industry felt like they were screwed over by what she said, including one rancher who claimed they lost about $6.7 million from the episode. So he sued her for $12 million. Dr. Phil's company helped her navigate the case, which she won. Oprah was blown away by Dr. Phil's skills, so much that she felt she had to have him on the show. Seeing how her credibility was starting to be questioned, she needed to get real experts to get on her show to talk about the things that she wanted to talk about. And so by getting Dr. Phil on there, she was kind of doing that. When he made his first appearance, she was so blown away that she started to have him on regularly on Tuesday for relationship and life strategy advice. Oprah was the building block for Dr. Phil. She gave him the mainstream spotlight and the credibility as she constantly glazed him in the media. This gave Dr. Phil the inspiration and the leverage to make his own show, and in 2002, the Dr. Phil show premiered. But first, I need to pay ransom.
I don't even know where to start with this. I'm going to go to Grammarly's new AI editor to see what I can come up with. And if you're not aware, Grammarly's an AI writing partner that helps.
This video is sponsored by
Dr. Phil.
Blue is one of the best.
No, Rick, I don't think it's that funny, to be honest.
Now, this is probably one of the best sponsors I've actually ever
entertaining?
done because they send me some of their products and it's really.
There's been some wild shit on the Dr. Phil show before. Whether it does any good, probably not. But I can't lie, it was entertaining.
You guys are probably aware of that storm that was like taking over half of America and covered the CEOs laughing come on.
We're going to deal with it now.
Stand by, Dr. Phil.
This is going to be a changing day in your life. I'm taking people with real problems and moving them into the Dr. Phil house.
This show had a very similar playbook to Oprah. They would feature guests with various problems, like parents who had rebellious kids, couples who had marriage problems, addicts with addictions, all types of personal drama. They would share these problems in front of a live audience, and Dr. Phil would give them very unfiltered, straight shooter advice. Sometimes he would recommend certain facilities and programs for the guests to attend after the episode. It's straightforward, but not in the helpful way you think. From the get-go, this show got quite a lot of backlash from people because of the format. What Dr. Phil was doing was not standard in his field of research. Many experts deemed that his advice at best was simplistic and at worst was ineffective. The National Hotline of Mental Illness even said that his show was straight up irresponsible and unethical. Specifically, they went after one episode where he literally said that a child was a serial killer in the making.
Parents should know the warning signs. For the most violent of criminals, there are 14 traits of serial killers. Now meet parents terrified of their own young son who has 9 of the 14 traits.
Dr. Phil's conduct is serious enough to warrant investigation by a relevant board of licensure, to the degree that he seemed to offer a definitive diagnosis, including a pharmacological assessment. Without careful evaluation or referral, he also may be subject to legal sanctions for practicing medicine without a license. And in response to all of this, Dr. Phil straight up just said, hey, he agreed to go on the show. Dr. Phil even said himself that he does not agree with standard one-on-one counseling. I'm not the hush puppies piping let's talk about your mother kind of psychologist. His advice was also flat out dangerous at times. Like on one episode where a couple came in where the girlfriend claimed that the boyfriend was abusing her non-stop, but the boyfriend claimed that this was strictly out of self-defense whenever she would attack him. And when he went into depth about what this girl was doing to him, Dr. Phil said probably some of the stupidest shit ever.
These are Michael's allegations. He says that she attacked with football moves and tackles and punched. His mouth was cut up. So you say she has come at you, she has attacked you, and that oftentimes you have done what you have done purely in defense.
Yes, that incident, definitely.
I don't care what she does. She starts punching you, then you turn around and walk away. If she starts following you, then you walk faster.
He said it's not okay to put your hands on a woman no matter what she does to you. So if she's attacking you, well, you just gotta man up and take it, right? That's not safe stuff to tell people. His show was not a replacement for therapy or any professional help. But since he was
how good that
doctor in his name, well,
help is,
if you want to know just how unprofessional this really was, Dr. Phil would oftentimes use a lie detector or a polygraph test to really try and prove his point.
Did you ever touch Jessica for a sexual reason when she was a child?
No.
And the results were non-deceptive, that you were telling the truth.
I knew it.
However, these things are straight up garbage. There's no evidence that they work at all. They usually track psychological indicators like blood pressure, pulse, respiration, but the truth is there is no proven psychological response that shows someone is lying. Meaning these tests don't do anything for you. And Dr. Phil, at the very
I don't get people take them at face value. They have ruined some relationships.
Dr. Phil was intentionally using the doctor name to give him credibility, and this went beyond the show. Right after the first season dropped, he made sure to capitalize hard on this. First, he dropped a weight book, Lost for People. This book instantly became a bestseller, selling over 2 million copies and was on the New York Times bestseller list for at least 5 weeks. Now, from what I saw, this book does seem to be sort of legit because it does give you some pretty basic steps. However, what was not legit was the line of supplements that he dropped. He teamed up with a company in Texas called CSA Nutraceuticals. They dropped this whole line of nutritional supplements like vitamin packets, meal replacement drinks, and power bars. They were advertised as being able to help people by, quote, targeting fat metabolism and reducing cravings. Dr. Phil even claimed that 10% of all of the profits made would go to the Dr. Phil Foundation, an organization that was meant to help fight child obesity. They were even sold in giant stores like Walgreens, Target, and Walmart. Sounds like a win-win, right? You can buy healthy products to make you look thinner, and you can fight for a good cause at the same time. But there was just one problem. The products fucking sucked. There was no evidence that these products actually helped people lose weight weight in any way. With a recognizable face and the doctor title, people just simply took it at face value, but it doesn't do anything. Because let's be real, most people don't really know the difference between most types of doctors. So if you see a product with the name doctor on it, well, you're probably just going to believe it blindly. But again, this is extremely misleading because he's not that kind of doctor. He's a doctor in psychology, not medicine or fitness. He has no actual credentials for giving any expert opinion on this. And this was in the 2000s where unhealthy food was becoming more and more common, but misinformation was also spreading like a wildfire. There wasn't Google or anything to really completely verify what you were being told was true. And people love a quick fix solution that they can just buy on the shelves. And obviously Dr. Phil wanted to hop on that train, but he wouldn't get away with it so easily. Literally just 1 year after these supplements hit the shelves, they were quickly taken down. The FDA did a giant investigation into them because they believed that it was extremely misleading. And they were. At the same time, the company was hit with a giant lawsuit from customers who claimed that they did not get the results that they wanted from these products. Not a surprise. Dr. Phil claimed that he was not liable because he was not an expert at making pills, but at the same time, he was literally using his face to sell it everywhere. He was also constantly glazing it. I think it's a good product, and I'm doing it for a really good reason and purpose. Although if I was doing it for a commercial as a brand extension of my own, I wouldn't apologize for that either. Somehow though, he did not have to pay any money for this lawsuit at all, even though he did lose it. The company was the one that lost it, and they had to settle for $10.5 million, meaning anyone that bought this crap was eligible to get a 3% of that juicy pie. The site for the products now is taken down, which is no surprise. And this was just the beginning of what happened that year. In the midst of all this criticism and lawsuit stuff, someone made a giant hit piece on him in the form of a book, The Making of Dr. Phil. This book covered a plethora of abuse allegations, unethical practices, and even interviews from people that he knew as a child. One of the most disturbing allegations from this was an inappropriate relationship he had with a former client. The client in question was 19 at the time, and she claimed that Dr. Phil touched her inappropriately, made her constantly check in with him, and made her dependent on him. This is textbook manipulation because when you make someone dependent on you, well, it makes them a lot easier to control. And unfortunately, Dr. Phil would know this because he does have a doctorate in psychology. The client issued a board of complaint to the Texas State Board of Examiners of Psychologists, and they did reprimand him. His punishment was a public letter of reprimand, a year of supervision by a licensed psychologist, complete physical and psychological exams, and an ethics class. Now, all this is alleged from what I can gather, so I'm not sure how true it really is. But whenever asked about it, he dismisses it very quickly. As he claims, it was investigated and dismissed. And what's pretty weird is that around the time that he was allegedly punished for this, he decided to just walk away from the therapy business altogether. Pretty coincidental, don't you think? Now, you'd think this list of controversies, scandals, and all of these lawsuits would do something to affect his views, but no. The viewers just simply didn't care. They just paid attention to the drama. It didn't matter that he wasn't a real doctor or wasn't doing standard practices. The show was entertaining, and it had its moments. The second season already had a 23% increase in viewers, which is a pretty big amount. And by 2007, each episode was getting an average 7 million viewers. And by 2008, it was the second most popular talk show, right behind his mentor, Oprah. And his show was getting praised by fans. Every year, he was getting nominated by the People's Choice Awards or for a Daytime Emmy. In 2006, he was even given a presidential certification by the American Psychological Association. The president of the association put it like this: "Your work has touched more Americans than any other living psychologist." Yeah, Dr. Phil was seen as a credible, legitimate voice for psychology. People loved the crazy characters that he'd bring on every time, like Sexy Vegan. This guy literally made his legal name Sexy Vegan. He was kicked off like right after he went on stage for moonwalking and being just a complete maniac. And they brought him on the show just a couple months later because he was just so good for ratings. The crazier they are, the better. But in 2008, people would see Dr. Phil's exploitive nature for the very first time. That year, Britney Spears was making a ton of headlines because she was under a conservatorship with her father, and also attorney Andrew M. Wallet. This was a strategic move for Britney's dad to control her and her media empire, because after all, she was one of the biggest stars in the world and had a $60 million fortune. Her dad was able to convince the judge to grant this to him because she was just going completely psycho in the media. The picture of her being bald and throwing shit at the paparazzi was just one of the most famous images at that time. Her dad even tried to claim that she had dementia, but there was like no proof of that. This was a 13-year-long, painful, long journey where Britney was forced to work, was forcibly fed lithium, was forced to take birth control, but she could barely have any control over her action.
The shit did this to Britney. Oh, Britney.
actual life. It's one of the worst stories in Hollywood when it comes to exploitation. A young girl signed her life away not knowing what she signed up for, and then her dad controlled her like a puppet, all for the sake of making money off of his own child. And Dr. Phil did not really help with this. In the beginning, before the conservatorship happened, she was placed in a hospital care because she refused to give up custody of her children one day. This was a pretty bad situation that involved the police. Her family was trying to convince her to stay in the hospital for longer. They figured maybe it would be best to get her to talk to a professional, so they called up Dr. Phil for some reason. But it didn't go well because right after Dr. Phil entered, she did not want to talk to him. No surprise. But this wasn't really the issue. It was the fact that Dr. Phil went into the public about it that was the issue.
Who asked you to come down to see us?
I want to set the record straight. I went to see Brittany at the request of her family. I talked to Lynn, I talked to Jamie, I talked to Brian, her brother. They were very frustrated that she apparently wasn't going to be held for a longer period of time. Thursday night, the phone rang, and it was Lynn. And she has a very close relationship with my wife, Robin. And, clearly she was very upset, which you would expect. Any parent would be.
How long have you been involved in Brittany's situation?
I was first contacted by her family over a year ago and have maintained a running dialogue with them throughout the last year.
Dr. Phil clearly did not want to help her in any way. It was actually an attempt to get Brittany and her family on the show. He saw this mental breakdown and thought, TV? Brittany Going Crazy was one of the biggest money makers for media in the 2000s. Imagine a whole TV episode of Brittany Going Crazy with her family trying to hold her down. The viewers would love it.
Yeah, I can't lie. If he managed to pull that off, it's so sick, it's so fucked up, but damn, that would have been good TV.
The ratings would love it, but for the public, this was enough, and this is where they started to put their foot down. Even the family had an issue with this, and they came forward to speak out against him. What's wrong with Dr. Phil's statement is that he made a statement. It was also criticized on the Spears family that instead of a real professional, they called in Dr. Phil, because again, why were they calling him? This was actually a direct violation against practice because he literally was not a doctor, so he was not allowed to practice clinical psychology. What he did went against guidelines, and it wasn't even in the state where he had his license in the first place. So why not just call a professional doctor instead? I don't know. Brittany's struggles were eventually recognized by the public when she was forced into a facility against her will in 2019. Tons of documentaries were going into depth about just how bad
that was sad, man.
really was, and it felt like she had no control over her real life. #Free Britney was going everywhere, and people were just fed up with it. But Dr. Phil really had the audacity to defend it.
Let me ask you this. Have you been following the Britney Spears saga late?
I just read that she had came out and made a statement that she was not being held.
Right.
And I believe it 100%.
Yeah.
Look, you don't hold people in America against their will. You can Baker Act them or 5150 them for up to 72 hours, maybe. But you don't hold people against their will in this country in a mental facility. It just doesn't happen.
He made it sound like Brittany wasn't being controlled and totally could just walk away whenever she wanted, when that really was not the case at all. Anyone with common sense can see how messed up this was, and this was not helping. If you think what Dr. Phil was doing off camera was bad, imagine what he was doing on camera. Dr. Phil's show had a recipe where he basically would just try and get the most problematic people as possible and try to stir up as much drama as possible. The crazier the freakouts, the better the ratings were. And his goal was to make sure all of it was on camera. But sometimes, if the episode wasn't crazy enough, he would have to take things into his own hands. In the year 2005, 18-year-old Natalie Holloway went on a trip with her friends to Aruba, but she never came back. She suddenly went missing, and no one really knows what happened to her. Did she get murdered? Did she go to another country? Did she drown? No one knows. Her grieving friends and family never got to say goodbye or get the closure that they needed. Hundreds of volunteers even searched the oceans to try and find her dead body, but nothing ever came about. It was eventually announced 2 years later that the case went cold and she was pronounced dead because they couldn't find her body. To this day, it's one of the most famous unsolved mysteries of all time. There's even a documentary about it. The last time she was seen was leaving a bar at 1:30 a.m. with 3 guys. Haran Vandersloot, Deepak Kalpoe, and Satish Kalpoe. They claim that they just simply drove her her around and then dropped her off at her hotel. So they were the primary suspects at the time, but there was no evidence that supported that they were really behind it. That same year, Dr. Phil made an episode on this matter. In the episode, he featured a hidden camera interview with one of the Caplow brothers where he seems to just casually admit that him and the other guys had sex with her. When an investigator asked if she had sex with all three, he responded, "She did." You'd be surprised how easy it was. This was a big bombshell because it added a lot of new details to the case that were not known before. It made so many headlines, but it was misleading. The brothers later sued Dr. Phil, claiming that he intentionally edited the episode to make them look more guilty than they appear and took that sentence way out of context. It seemed like Dr. Phil was really trying to get that bombshell moment that would later get these boys rearrested and really end the trial and give the closure, even if some things allegedly had to be altered. This case went on for 9 years, but eventually it was dismissed. So who knows if it's true or not. It is worth noting that the Caplow brothers were never actually found guilty of this murder. But Joe Rogan, on the other hand, is a little bit more up for debate because he gives so many contradicting statements. One day he says that his friend disposed of the body. One day he said that he sold her for sex slavery. The other day he says that he killed her himself. So like every other day, it was a different story with this guy. So I mean, who knows what really happened at this point? But this was not the first time that Dr.
What happened to him? Did he get arrested for it?
Thomas Riccio, the man who was famous for videotaping the Las Vegas robbery that led to O.J. Simpson being arrested, also sued Dr. Phil. He also claims that his appearance on the episode was edited to be intentionally misleading. On the show, Dr. Phil made it seem that Thomas set up O.J. Simpson and told people to bring their guns into the room. However, Dr. Phil did not include the statement where Thomas completely denied these statements and was anti-gun. But the lawsuit was also dismissed because there just wasn't really enough evidence to support it. That same year, a woman also visited Dr. Phil seeking therapy, but she claimed that she was held captive against her will. She said that she was locked in a room with a man who exposed himself to her, if you catch my drift. Then she was deprived of food, sleep, and then brainwashed, and then subjected to editing tapes depicting her as a different personality other than her own. And also, apparently, Dr. Phil gave her a quick honka honka. Dr. Phil is nothing like what he's like on TV. You have no idea what I and this other woman went through. She also sued Dr. Phil for this, but nothing really came about it. A lot of these lawsuits were pretty suspicious, but
Dr. Phil has lawsuits on lawsuits,
what
bro.
the worst proof was one of Dr. Phil's employees intentionally posting bail for a person to come on his show. In 2008, Dr. Phil was planning to do an episode on a recent event where 8 girls were accused of assaulting another teenager. Well, allegedly is a pretty loose word because there literally was a videotaping of it. The teens backed a 16-year-old girl into a corner and then beat her to the point where she went unconscious. They then dragged her body into a car and then dumped her onto a friend's lawn. I mean, this went beyond bullying. It was straight up criminal. The video was super disturbing, and it was one of the reasons why this story got so much mainstream attention. All 8 of the teens involved were charged with kidnapping and battery. And Dr. Phil saw this as a great opportunity to talk about on his show. But there was just one problem. The girls were in jail. Specifically, one of the girls that he really wanted to talk with. So, one of the people who worked on the Dr. Phil show went and actually posted the girl's bail. This was caught immediately and caused quite a lot of controversy in the media. I mean, posting the bail for a violent girl all for the sake of a spectacle is not very good. So much so that Dr. Phil had to scrap the episode. We've held guests and potential guests in the past when they need financial assistance to come on the show, assisting with clothing allowance, lost wages, accommodations, travel, and necessities. In this case, certain staff members went beyond our guidelines, i.e. the bail being paid. These staff members have been spoken to and our policies reiterated. In addition, we have decided to not go forward with the story as our guidelines have been compromised. It's unknown if Dr. Phil
they just mad up
order, but it was his show and it was under his supervision, and this kind of just goes to show you what the true intentions of his show really are. And this definitely reflected with Todd Herzog. Now, Todd was a pretty big superstar in the world of reality TV because he was the winner of Survivor Season 15. However, in the years followed, his life completely fell apart as he fell into alcoholism. He was drinking all day, every day. So his family tried to make him get better by appearing on the show. But when he showed up, he was so drunk that he literally had to be carried on stage, and Dr. Phil felt like he was talking to a person on the verge of death.
Hi, Dr. Phil.
Hi, I'm Todd. Nice to meet you.
How you feel, man? Can you walk?
Fam, in the first 2 seconds, I can already tell he needs professional help. I won't be surprised if he
Help.
needs help.
I'm very...
Sorry. Brandon, why don't you get over there and take Debbie's spot?
Yeah, I'll go.
In my opinion, you're killing yourself. This is a breathalyzer. I want you to blow into it really hard for 5 seconds when I tell you, so I can see where you are. All right, take a deep breath and blow. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Okay. 0.263.
After the show, Todd was sent to a
Mad.
90-day rehab center. He had the full endorsement from his friends,
Shit, he needs
family,
alcohol,
and
yeah.
from fellow Survivor contestants. However, he relapsed again and then showed up on Dr. Phil a lot worse than before.
We say, Todd?
I've had a bad few weeks. And I fell off the bandwagon, and you know me, when I drink. So I just reached out, and I didn't know what to do, because honestly, I don't want to die.
Do you mean that when you say that? Do you not want to die? At 2:30 this morning, you had a blood alcohol level of 0.432. That's
death.
That's death.
That's death.
0.32 is death. How much are you drinking, Todd? What are you drinking?
Vodka mainly.
And how much are you drinking?
About 2 liters.
So you're drinking about a half gallon a day.
Yeah.
For the average viewer, Todd was a hopeless alcoholic who was simply not working hard enough to really better himself and was wasting the opportunities that Dr. Phil was giving him. But this may not be the full story, because Todd claimed that one of the members of the show gave him a full bottle of vodka and a Xanax pill.
I show up to the studios and I'm sober, I'm hurting a lot, and I'm shaking. My dad was there and I went and talked to him in his dressing room, and I was completely sober. And then they pull me into my dressing room, and there was 2 liters of vodka and like some Red Bulls and orange juice and stuff like that. You know, being unsupervised by my parents, I drank the entire bottle. And then at some point somebody gave me a Xanax. They said, this will calm your nerves. And so I had been drinking and took a Xanax, which I've never taken Xanax before in my life. And I know that can be a deadly combination, so why it was given to me, I don't know.
Now all of this is he say, she say, but don't you think it's just a little bit suspicious that this guy somehow appeared on the show drunk out of his mind, surrounded by a family that did not want him to drink, and by all of the show staff? Isn't it their job to make sure that people don't show up extremely intoxicated? Why would they even let him go on at that point? It just seemed a little too coincidental. And I mean, yeah, it's sad, but it's definitely great for TV. I mean, what do you think makes a much better clip? Him walking on that show sober? Or
morals, man. This guy, he has no morals. Dr. Phil has no morals. I'm telling you now. He don't give a
So I think that kind of speaks for itself. But hey, you never know, because when it comes to addictions, everyone has their way of getting their fix. The closest thing that Dr. Phil ever had to real confrontation was when he had the host of Bum Fights appear on his show. This guy literally just got famous online for posting homeless people fighting each other online. It's pretty messed up. Dr. Phil had him on the show, but he trolled him by literally dressing up as Dr. Phil. And when this happened, Dr. Phil just straight up made him leave because he didn't want any part of this. But before Bum Fights was forced to leave, he made a pretty good argument.
Stop the tape. Stop the tape. I don't want to talk to you.
Why not?
That's despicable. I don't want to talk to you.
If you think I exploit people, every time you bring a guest on this show, you exploit them and spread whatever problems they have to the whole world. You think that's helping them?
Yeah, keep telling yourself that. You can go.
Mad. At least he's still on business though.
You know what?
He's still dead wrong, but he's still on business.
Bye. Come on.
Huh? No, I'm not finished talking to you.
Yeah, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are.
It's one of those situations where the worst person you know has a good point. Because he's right, Dr. Phil was exploiting people for his own personal gain. But it actually was a pretty genius move on Dr. Phil's part, because this criticism was coming from a really, really bad guy. So of course, no one was going to take it seriously. Dr. Phil looks like the winner in this situation. But at the same time, it does take one to know one. Perhaps one of the most famous cases of Dr. Phil's exploitation was with actress Shelley Duvall. For those that don't know, Shelley Duvall was famous for starring in the movie The Shining, which is like one of the greatest movies ever made. If you haven't seen it, well, watch it after this video because it's really, really good. Anyway, she was forced to take quite a long break from acting after her mental health took a very, very far downhill turn. She was talking about how Robin Williams was secretly alive as a shapeshifter, how there were alien implants in her legs, and how she was being hunted by the Sheriff of Nottingham, whatever that means.
The Sheriff of Nottingham.
So what does Dr. Phil do? Well, you guessed it. He sees dollar signs and viewership ratings.
I knew Robin and I was sorry when he died. That was a sad day.
I don't think he's dead.
Yeah, you don't think he's dead?
No.
Mad.
What do you think happened?
That movie must have took its toll, huh?
I don't know. Stones escapes.
Where do you think he is?
Shape-shifting.
Yeah.
Oh, she's lost
He's real
it.
good in some forms, in other forms he doesn't.
Do you see him?
Has, yes. Mostly.
Since he was reported
she's
dead,
lost
you see
it.
him?
No, it was before.
Okay. Well, let me tell you something that's important. Okay, will you listen to me? Tell you something important. I want to have you checked out by some really good doctors.
I would like that.
For free. I'll pay for
If you
it.
promise me that they won't murder me.
I promise you.
Because I don't want to be strangled or suffocated with a pillow.
Shelley, I promise you they're not going to murder you. I promise you they're not going to smother you or strangle you.
That little piggy booked a villa. This little piggy booked a hotel.
So tell me she dies. That'll be
When
a
life
crazy
leaves you
plot
short on
twist.
supplies, send for the cavalry. Our freshness promise means your fresh.
They're going to help you feel better.
If you watch the interview, it is so obvious that she is clearly not in a good state of mind. Like, she's talking about doctors trying to murder her. Why is she on camera? Even in the recordings of her going to the doctors, it's so obvious that she should not be recorded.
I want to know where we are. I want to see where I am. Before
She's not right. No, it's a bit weird.
I don't agree to work 24 hours a day. Or anybody, and that includes Francis Ford Coppola, that includes Steven Spielberg.
Steven Spielberg. Damn.
Why this was all filmed is just really weird. The public and the media saw this as super exploitive, including Stanley Kubrick's daughter, and in case you don't know, Stanley Kubrick was the guy who directed The Shining. You're putting Shelley Duvall on show while she is suffering from a pitiable state of ill health. Unquestionably, this is purely a form of lewd and exploitive entertainment. It's appallingly cruel. I hope others will join me in boycotting your utterly heartless form of entertainment because it has nothing to do with compassion and healing. Now, did Dr. Phil take this back and maybe regret it? Of course not.
Some folks said that you exploited her mental condition. Do you regret what you did there?
Oh, I don't regret what I did. I regret that it was promoted in a way that people thought was unbecoming. And there are parts of that story that I haven't talked about and won't talk about in specific, but I can say generally that we worked with her family. We worked with her for over a year off camera after that fact in providing her opportunities for inpatient and outpatient psychiatric care. Just, I can't tell you the extent
We'll never know,
we went to.
honestly, unless Shelley comes out saying this is all
People
cap.
that were critical of it,
Then fair.
nobody ever asked them what they ever did to try and help her.
Now, this did get him quite a lot of backlash, but it was being overshadowed by the new era that his show was entering in the internet age. YouTube was now officially taking over the media empire and was becoming a genuine competitor to cable. Young people weren't really watching
That's literally
live
all.
TV anymore. They were
I
watching
never
online
watched
content that was easily
him
accessible
live.
and
No.
free. This may seem bad
I
for
always watch him
Dr.
on
Phil, but in
YouTube, to be
reality,
fair.
It was actually one of the best things that ever happened.
That was my era.
Posting clips from the juiciest and most dramatic moments of his show for young people that were easy to access for free was a great move. Suddenly, Dr. Phil was
Jesus
an
is
icon for
breaking
all
with baby
generations.
Jesus.
His channel got over
Jesus.
6 million subscribers, and his content was seeing new light as it was being reacted to by YouTubers.
Oh, do you think this is a joke?
Yes.
Okay, you think this is a joke? Because this is not going to be funny in about 5 minutes.
She's scared.
Dr. Phil is gonna kill her. Dr. Phil is gonna destroy!
He even took advantage by appearing on meme reviews with PewDiePie.
Hey, everyone, it's Dr. Phil here, and I am hosting meme review. So
Mad.
here we go.
I'm so I watched this one when it came out.
Contrast here, but I gotta tell you, what I do with Good Charlotte is my business. Hashtag the little things. I give that an 8 because it's a pretty good contrast.
No, we got to get
because
proper
there were
memes.
some risks with social media. He joined Twitter and would post daily questions to try and get fans engaged with some serious conversations. But one of the questions was pretty wild. If a girl is drunk, is it okay to have sex with her? Reply yes or no at Dr. Phil. Hashtag Teen Accused. That is extremely out of pocket. I think we know the answer to that one, Doc. And yeah, it would get him some controversy, but in 2016, he did strike gold.
Everything has to be Barbara Ann's way.
Daniel Bigoli, bro. I remember that.
Like if I tell her like hit me, she'll try to hit me, and I gotta like dodge her. Cause if she hits me, I'm giving it to her. I'm pretty violent. I mushed her in the face cause she wouldn't get out my face. Either I'm breaking down her door or she's breaking down my door. I don't stop till I start seeing dents in the door. Cause I knew what I was doing, you did it. She's so over exaggerated. But she'll be like, oh, she threw boulders at my window. The pebble's like this little. She'll threaten me. If you don't do this or that, then I'm gonna call your PO. You got one more
I don't know with this. I always thought they were both wrong. Damn, shit.
I ran out 4 times in one day. And the cops brought me back every time. She wants me to be sent away.
In 2013, Danielle Bregoli was as rebellious as a 13-year-old girl can be. She stole her mom's car, she held knives, she was twerking. Her mom had her on the show as a way to maybe hopefully get her some discipline. And the show was more of a spectacle as it was really Dr. Phil trying to navigate the teen slang that she was displaying. And this viral moment would be born.
Because you're too streetwise?
Yup. And all these hoes laughing like something funny.
She's talking about the audience, that they're laughing at her.
Did you say the hoes are laughing?
Yep.
So the audience are a bunch of hoes?
Yep.
You must have laughed so hard.
So
Nah,
I'm
bro,
writing an
what?
essay on cats. Cats in art
So
history.
country.
I'm an art history major.
Catch me outside, how about that?
Catch you outside? What does that mean?
What I just said.
Catch her outside and she'll go outside and do what she has to do.
The moment was so funny for fans as Catch Me Outside was
Catch Me Outside was
it felt like a moment. This was something that
you basically
could
say
not
catch
see.
his heads
In the midst of
outside.
Damn Daniel and dabbing, it was one of those things that kind of just went viral for really no reason. The original video to this day has nearly 60 million views. It's also the most viewed video on Dr. Phil's channel. Danielle Bregoli hopped on the opportunity like none other. She was working with other content creators. She was making her own content. She was even appearing in music videos. You probably know her as Bad Baby with her plethora of hit rap songs, and also making millions of dollars on OF as soon as she turned 18, which, yeah, that's yeah,
crazy.
This probably was one of the best things that happened to
Niggas
Dr.
are
Phil's
so
promotion,
wrong.
even though Bad Baby
Damn.
was definitely getting the better end of the stick. But it also might have been one of the worst because of what came years later. When Danielle initially appeared on the show, she was sent to Turnabout Ranch. This place was a residential treatment for troubled teens. It helped give these kids structure by combining therapy, academics, and ranching. It basically gave a place for all these kids to just take a break from society as a whole and really get some discipline in their lives. And when they came back, they would be refreshed starting over. It sounds like a pretty good idea. And when Danielle went, it seemed like she was having a great time and was learning quite a lot. Working with horses helped Danielle really learn patience. And things were great on camera. Off camera, not so much. From the get-go, it's already pretty sick. They literally went in the middle of the night to take her by force to the ranch. She was handcuffed by transporters who put her in a van and then drove her all the way over to
Yeah,
the ranch.
I'd be
When they brought her
pissed,
to the
bro.
ranch, they forced her to sit
I don't
in
get
the
what
TV,
nobody
and
talking
she was
about. I'd be
allowed to lay
pissed.
down or sleep for 3 days. For some reason, if they caught her lying down, they would force her to stay right back up. She even claimed that they restrained her beds, warmth, and good food. When they wanted, they would restrain patients and even withhold letters. Bullying
Mad.
was even encouraged by the staff. But the real bombshell was the murder that was covered up while she was there. One of the
The
kids
murder?
literally killed a staff member, but this was covered up entirely by the
Mad.
media until she spoke out about it. The reason why they didn't talk about it before, because they were worried that simply no one would believe them. It was the word of the rebellious, untrustworthy teens versus the official head staff. Who do you think they're going to believe?
One morning I was cleaning up for breakfast
and one of the staff members was sitting right next to me, and she had her walkie on her, so I heard everything. One of the kids, he had tried to steal a car or something. Everyone was screaming on the walkies like it was really crazy, and he ended up killing one of the staff members. They made all the kids that were at Rowdy come down, and then they told us not to tell us anything. A day later, they have us all every kid that's at Turnabout, they have us all sit in a circle, and they're like, listen, there was an incident, I know some of y'all heard it over the walkies, Jimmy died. And so we're all freaking out because Jimmy was, like I said, he was one of them that was there the first day I got there. He was really sweet. Not only did Jimmy die, but one of the other staff members that was there at the time, Alicia, who was the daughter of the nurse. Alicia, she was also injured, and 2 years later she died, and she was also left disabled after being attacked by Clay. So the mother of the kid Clay who killed the staff, she was married to the brother of the president of the program, which I also believe is a conflict of interest. I don't know why they would do that. So it was really sad. Like, they wouldn't tell us what happened and all that. And any of the kids that were there, like, they couldn't talk about it, but they were, like, really traumatized by it. Even the ones that weren't there were traumatized by it. Like, I heard it over the walkie. Like, that's scary. Like, so you got kids here that are killing people.
Maybe it would slide if it was the first allegation, but it was not. Turnabout Ranch has so many accusations of torture, violence, animal abuse, sleep and food deprivation, and so much more. In 2012, a mother filed a lawsuit for her daughter who stayed there in 2005. According to the 34-page complaint, during her stay,
I don't trust
Elizabeth
these
was
places,
subject
man.
to sleep deprivation, denied food,
You
and
gotta
was
sort your
forced
kids
to
out
eat and
yourself,
prepare meat,
bro,
which was
'cause this-
important to her as a vegetarian.
these kinds of
The
places,
ranch threatened
man,
her with restraint and
not
force
good.
feeding with a tube if she did not comply. The ranch forced physical labor and excessive exercise in extreme temperatures. It forced her to regularly put her hands in a sink filled with bleach to wash dishes until they bled, leaving to this day scars on her knuckles. They forced her to maintain stress positions for many hours at a time during the first few days at the ranch, not allowing her to rest her body against any structures to stretch or lie down, putting great pressure on her back, neck, and joints, all of which was extremely painful. They forced her to sleep on a wooden slab without a pillow or mattress, even though she already suffered from ongoing back pain from an injury that her parents had told the ranch about. And this is just one of, like, the many, many testimonies. It would take me hours to get through, like, every single one. The other most notable case beside Danielle's is Hannah Archuleta, another guest who appeared on the show after she had thoughts of unaliving herself at the age of 17. Literally, as a minor, she was being touched by staff members. But when she tried to speak up, she was punished. In what appeared to be punishment for reporting my abuse, I was required to spend extra time picking up horse manure, walking in circles around a horse carrel, and sitting at a desk facing a wall for hours. I also had to do forced labor outside in below freezing temperatures and sleep on a wooden plank with no pillow. Hannah sued Turnabout Ranch and then sued Dr. Phil because he was the one that pressured her parents into making her go there. But her case went nowhere, as apparently it did not go against anti-SLAPP laws. In fact, she had to pay $360,000 in attorney fees and another $42,000 in costs.
God.
So how did Dr. Phil actually address all of this when he came out? He just went, nah, that didn't happen.
Can they do it on a cold, rainy night in Stoke?
Choose you. Choose discipline. Choose obsession. Choose pain and euphoria, and choose to...
Well, you know, she went to Turnabout 4 or 5 years ago, and if she had a bad experience, you know, obviously I would hate that. We'd be sorry about that, but we don't have anything to do with what happens with guests once they leave the stage. I mean, that's between the guardian and the parent and whatever facility they go to. So we're not involved in that. We don't have any feedback from them. So whatever happens once they're there, that's between them and the facility. I assume she had a problem. She filed a complaint.
He never admitted to any wrongdoing and just simply stopped sending kids there to avoid the controversy. The thing is, this is not the only one of those types of programs that Dr. Phil has been associated with that has been extremely controversial. The Aspen Education Group is very similar to Turnabout Ranch, where it simply provides a therapeutic route for teenagers through these wilderness activities. But also, just like Turnabout Ranch, it has a long, long list of controversies and lawsuits. Multiple children claiming that they were tortured, sexually abused, starved. You get what I'm saying. One of these engaged with a teenage girl who appeared on Dr. Phil after she was having relations with men she met online. She was severely traumatized after one of these men unalived himself. So Dr. Phil recommended her to the Aspen Island View Residential Treatment Center, which was a more specific behavior modification lockdown facility. This already was a very weird response to her situation considering the amount of trauma that she had, and the response was to just simply lock her away. It was intended to give her structure, but the facility was adjacent to a prison. They made her stay in a certain room for hours, and she couldn't refuse whatever orders she was given. Sounds pretty familiar to a prison. In one instance, she refused to get out of bed, so staff made her get out of bed by dragging her by the arm, which nearly broke her arm. And again, that's just one instance, and it's far, far from the worst. The truth is, almost every single one of these teen facility programs is extremely bad. You're gonna have a harder time finding one that doesn't have a long list of serious allegations and finding one that actually seems trustworthy when you're really deep into them. There's a whole documentary on Netflix about just how bad they really are, and unfortunately, most parents don't really know how bad they truly are. For them, it's a payable program to dump their kids into this facility so that they don't have to deal with it themselves. They should never, ever be used. And with all these laws, scams, proof of exploitation, you think maybe this would do something bad to Dr. Phil, right? No. His ratings were still just as good and going strong. But the real catalyst for the show actually coming to an end was the destruction that was happening from the inside, because his employees were finally done. In 2022, tons of them came forward about just how toxic the work environment is, and a lot of them shared their horror stories. Everyone was just pretty miserable. You would walk into the building and there was just a palpable dread and anxiety. Dr. Phil, the show about mental health where everybody who works on it has a terrible mental health because our work conditions were really bad. 7 employees claimed that they felt pressured to encourage racist stereotypes, and 2 employees were the victim of racism. One of the employees claimed that they were specifically instructed to not give a guest with mental issues their medication. We were specifically instructed to make sure that she doesn't take her medication before she goes on stage, because they wanted her to look unstable and quote-unquote crazy, for a lack of a better term. And the workplace was also claimed to have a very strong power dynamic between the high-tier employees and the low-tier employees. The top employees obviously being treated like kings, with the low-tier employees being treated like trash and disposable. A lot of employees described the control room as a war zone. It was traumatizing. It was the worst hour of your life. There was full-blown yelling, calling people idiots, and slamming doors, and it would not be acceptable in any other job in any other business. Then after, everybody's upset and everybody's crying. One of the executives, Carla Pennington, was the center of these accusations. She was known to literally scream at employees and berate them on set. She would yell at employees over the smallest things, calling them idiots and the R word. If you made a small, teensy tiny mistake, she would make you feel like you were the dumbest idiot on the world and would make sure that you could be fired for it. She reprimanded me so severely that I couldn't breathe. It has nothing to do with my performance and everything to do with whether or not they liked you. They would look at me dead in the eyes and go, "Do you know what day it is? Do you even know? Are you that stupid?" And it wasn't just the employees. Carla oftentimes made a lot of really weird remarks about guests. You know, the ones with mental illness. Specifically, she was accused of making fun of the Black and Latino people that came onto the set. Now, working in a big production with very strict deadlines does require very strict leadership and discipline. Sometimes you have to be a little rough with the operations. But from what the employees claim, this seems to be crossing the line from just, you know, being a really good boss to just straight up toxic operations. It shouldn't be to the point where it's destroying the employees' mental health. So why did they wait 20 years to come forward with this? Well, the main reason was the environment of fear. If you guys have worked a corporate job before, you're probably familiar with the phrase that HR is not your friend. No one filed complaints to HR because they were afraid that it would just lead to further punishment. Even if they did want to, it was difficult to get in touch with HR because they were on set with Paramount. So if they had issues, the closest people that they could contact about this was Carla or Dr. Phil. So I think you see why this was a really bad issue. If you complain to HR, you might as well expect to be fired. They will do anything and everything they can to keep anything under wraps. It got to the point where the toxic environment on the Dr.
That's what HR is, bro.
Knowledge in the entertainment industry, but
they're not for you.
Now, it is important to note that
They're for
with
the
these
business.
accusations, Dr. Phil was not the one that was ever accused of screaming or doing the harassing or any of this nasty stuff. They even specifically claimed that he wasn't really around to witness them. So it's a worthwhile theory that genuinely, maybe they were just doing the stuff behind his back so that he wouldn't see it, and they were able to keep their jobs. But there is an accusation from one employee that is darker than all of this. In 2015, former employee Leo Rothman sued Dr. Phil for allegedly locking employees in a room and yelling profanities at them because apparently they were leaking info to the press. The situation caused her so much distress that she just quit right then and there. Now, Leah tried to get the evidence for this incident by accessing the footage. This required going through the database. But she was then sued by Dr. Phil's production company for purloining the footage and trying to sell it to the press. This caused quite the conundrum for Leia because she couldn't get the evidence that she wanted, and the way that she was obtaining it wasn't really the best. So therefore, it wasn't really suitable for court, and unfortunately, the case was dismissed. Dr. Phil wasn't punished for this, and the public barely even heard about it. But the employees coming forward honestly was definitely one of the biggest things that ever happened to Dr. Phil, as it made tons of headlines. It gave people a pretty sour taste of the show, which is exactly why Ellen failed so horribly. And it's pretty coincidental that this show ended just right after all of this stuff came about. Of course, Dr. Phil made it seem like the show ended on his own terms and humbly bragged about all the progress they made. I have been blessed with over 25 years in daytime television. With this show, we have helped thousands of guests and millions of viewers through everything from addiction and marriage to mental wellness and raising children. This has been an incredible chapter of my life and career, but while I'm moving on from daytime, there is so much more I wish to do. The thing is, the show was falling apart because right after all of this, they had to fire 25 staff members from the production. The ratings were a lot lower too. By now, he was getting an average of maybe 1.4 million viewers per episode, which is like a fraction of what he was getting. With
but nobody
lower
watches
ratings and fewer
daytime
production budgets,
TV
the show
anyway.
was clearly heading off course. And in 2023, it finally ended. After the show
Facts.
ended, more and more people came forward about just their really, really uncomfortable experience with the actual program. My grandmother went on Dr. Phil a few years ago because she has dementia and schizophrenia and was seeing spirits and whatnot in her house. My mom called the show asking for their help because my grandmother watched Dr. Phil and believed that he was one of the only people who could help her. So she went on. Basically, once she got there, they called in a psychic and started telling her all this bullshit about how the spirit that she was seeing, some little boy, was some kid who was abused by his mother in the 40s or something ridiculous like that. They basically told her that she wasn't crazy, which was the exact opposite of what we were trying to achieve. After all that, my grandmother believed that she was psychic for a couple of years, and now she's in an assisted living facility with severe dementia, schizophrenia, and Alzheimer's. It's pretty bad. If the Dr. Phil show just straight up told her that she needed help, things might have been different by now. They obviously just
But they ain't gonna do
for the
that.
sake of entertainment and not to help
Entertainment,
others.
man.
My family and I were on the show several years ago for watching too much TV. They sent a TV crew to our house and filmed us without TV for 24 hours. After having strangers in our home for several days of filming, they flew us out to LA for the show. During the show, my sister and I had to stay backstage the first half of our segments so that my parents could talk about their relationship. When we went out, Dr. Phil asked my sister and I about not having TV and how much we watched. Before the show, they had the spouses fill out a questionnaire about each other. My dad had mostly answered, "I don't know." When Dr. Phil read this information aloud, there was a collective gasp from the audience, which was mostly older women. He even added a terrible joke that not all TV was bad with a shit-eating grin. Overall, we left the show knowing that what he said was taken out of context and made us look like drooling TV zombies. After a couple of years, they had us come back on the show for a follow-up. My mom laid into Dr. Phil about how they made us look and the program that was never as bad as it had seemed. His face after was priceless. I actually knew of a kid who got sent to teen camp and came out really messed up in the head. There was the stereotypical tiger mom / Asian dad couple that used to eat at my family's restaurant all the time and had a son around 13 to 14. Well, the couple got tired of their son frequently staying up past 8 p.m. playing StarCraft Counter-Strike despite the kid being an honor student. Long story short, they thought he needed to be taught a lesson, so they threw him in a teen camp. After they came to pick him up, he was just quiet the whole ride home and never looked them in the eye. However, for days he would refuse to eat, sit at the table motionless, and just blankly stared into space. They would talk to him, but he would show no emotions. Nudge at him and still no emotion. Yell, scream, bribe, praise, whatever they could do, he would show no emotion. Even at school, he just sat in a dark corner. Eventually, the mom got frantic and started shaking him, and he snapped, grabbed a knife, and stabbed her hand to the table, and just thrashed her like a wild animal. The dad had to fight his son off the mother after the whole ordeal. The son just left the house. Eventually, they tracked him down, forcing him to see a psychologist or whatever, and he told them what happened at the camp. Since he was such a fair-skinned Asian, he was constantly bullied and R-worded in camp. Now keep in mind, these come from Reddit, so take it with a grain of salt. But don't you think it's just pretty wild how there's so many negative experiences being voiced about this show and all of these lawsuits coming about? It's just somewhat suspicious. But Dr. Phil wasn't worried about any of this. According to Forbes, the man was making up to $95 million a year by the late 2010s. So he was totally fine. He was living on a bed of money. So where do we go from here? The thing is, by this time, Dr. Phil's career was basically at its wit's end. The show wasn't popular anymore, and he was old news. So he would continue to do what he does best, pretending to be an expert in something that he knows nothing about. What was this exactly now? Politics. After the Dr. Phil show, he made a new show called Dr. Phil Primetime. The difference was that this one was being filmed in the state of Texas and hosted more of a debate conversation style, and not really as much as confronting people with their problems. It was also going to be on his own network, Merit, that he founded himself. And I mean, the first episode, he was wasting no time. It was literally a debate between an Israeli spy and two pro-Palestinian college students. He hosted tons of controversial guests like Jordan Peterson, Eric Adams, and even Benjamin Netanyahu. Like, what? Like, this was the daytime TV show of an edgy red pill podcast. And again, everyone's entitled to their own political opinions. I'm not trying to shame this. And it would be dumb for me to try and pretend to be an expert. But clearly this show was more about sending a very biased narrative. Like when he had Donald Trump on his show and defended the whole hush money trial that he was involved in, claiming that it was prosecutorial abuse. It's clearly biased because Dr. Phil is a big Trump supporter. And when you look at all this, it's really no wonder why his show was such a disaster. It's not known what the views of the show was, but it is known that his production company, Merit, on average was getting 27,000 viewers. And that was at its peak. It was in the top 15 of the least watched networks, ranking 140 out of 153. And let's be real, this is probably the very first time you're even hearing about this show and this network. With these giant...
It's the first time I'm hearing about the network, yeah. But I've seen...
it's insane how his show did not get more
I've
popular.
seen some of
Jordan
the
Peterson
stuff
can
that
get
he was
10 million
doing.
views on a podcast. When Benjamin Netanyahu was on Full Send, no one would shut up about that for months. And the fact that Trump's interview did not get more recognition even during the 2024 election phase is actually pretty crazy too. Dr. Phil is a giant voice. How did these episodes not get more recognition? It just goes to show how little interest...
It's because he kind of fell off now.
After the second season, they had to lay off 40 employees. It was heading so far downhill. This show flopped more than I think anyone ever could have imagined, and the fact that it even went for a second season is nothing short of a miracle. After just 1.5 years, it ended. Well, it couldn't get any worse, right? Well, the same day the show premiered its last episode, Merit, the production company, filed for bankruptcy. You see, when Dr. Phil left CBS to make this new show, he teamed up with Trinity, which was a Christian broadcast network. They're the most religious network in the entire world, so teaming up with Dr. Phil, who also was a pretty religious man, just made sense. The deal was simple. Trinity would provide Merit with the production and anything that they needed to make these shows happen. Merit would premiere the show. It also probably helps explain why no one ever heard of this show. And the network really did believe in the show because this deal that they were doing with Dr. Phil was worth $500 million.
Emmys.
Crap. But in just 2 years, Merit was already swimming in debt. Apparently, they lost $100 million. Merit even sued Trinity over the claim that they sabotaged the network by not giving them the production assets and resources that they needed. But Trinity fired back, claiming that they weren't producing the shows that they were expecting. So it's hard to say who's right. But what was pretty certain is that Dr. Phil was doing some pretty shady activity during all of this. These financial losses are what prompted him to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. This essentially would allow the company to keep running while not having to pay their creditors back immediately. The thing is, Dr. Phil suspiciously created a whole other media company, Envoy Media, while this happened. He made it literally the day before they filed for bankruptcy. Now, I don't know the fancy business detail terms, but essentially he was trying to swindle the deal to try and use some sort of money to fund this new media venture. Dr. Phil tried to deny this in court when he was presenting it to a judge. I'm doing everything I can to keep Merit up and running. This theory that this was all a ploy to set up Envoy Media is absurd, but the judge didn't buy it. As apparently, Dr. Phil was caught deleting text messages stating his plan to sue Trinity so that he could rid Merit of its debt and then use that money to set up Envoy Media. So his filing was rejected, and it basically forced him to file Chapter 7 liquidation, which forced him to sell assets that he could repay creditors. This sounds like a loss, and in a way it was, but not in the long run. Yeah, it did humiliate him a little bit, but in terms of finance, Dr. Phil was fine. In the end, he is still worth over an estimated $400 million. This was just simply a failed side business for him. For such a long time, Dr. Phil's show has been the real debate over ethical practices. He may be professional in psychology, but what he was practicing definitely was not registered psychology. Even the California Board of Psychology literally said that his show was more about entertainment, but does that make it right? Now, it is worth mentioning that his show has done good on and off screen. Many people have had their lives improved from this show and from the programs that he has recommended, along with the advice that he has given. It's not like every single thing that he has done has had bad effects in return. No. The Dr. Phil Foundation is pretty legit. He has been involved in multiple charities that have been for good causes. So was the harm that the show caused worth the good in return? It did make a spectacle out of many people's
That's the question, man. For everybody, it's different.
Their lives ruined as well after the show. It led to many kids being enrolled in a program that completely traumatized them for life. It has also made many people never want to work in the entertainment industry ever again for good reason. Whether this was Dr. Phil's intention is up to debate. But one thing is for sure is that the money makes it pretty hard to regret it.
Keep your passwords safe. Cheese crack.
Today he is facing.
I can't. That was a pretty good video. Pretty good video. This is the Minute Lives of Mia Khalifa.
The Dr. Phil Show is one of the most successful daytime.
This is kind of a long ass list. I do want to apologize to Gauze. You feel me? I want to apologize to Gauze because you know.
Jesse Einsberg career.